Before we make our presentation this morning, I want to share a few thoughts with you, just to kind of put this experience into perspective. I want to offer you a few thoughts about Tolstoy, the writer of the short story, and then a couple of other thoughts in addition to that. So, who was Leo Tolstoy? Well, Leo Tolstoy was born in what we know as Russia in 1828, died in 1910. So it's a little over a century ago. And without going into any kind of intense biography, it was in the 1870s that Tolstoy underwent a kind of transformation. He went on a long journey, a long trip. And in the trip, he encountered the results of war, devastation, ruin, what it actually did to people's lives. And it got to him. It was one of those transformative moments where he began to ask himself, what really matters in life? Is it really the things that I do? Is there anything I can do to improve the world? Questions that we ask ourselves all the time. And what happened is that he eventually formulated his viewpoints, new viewpoints, and wrote a magazine or periodical called The Mediator. This is now in 1883. And the themes that he wrote about there are themes that he used the rest of his life. As we all know, he wrote A War and Peace and Anna Karenina, and those are themes that he worked into those novels as a result of his experience with the war and what happens. In 1885, he also wrote this, what you're going to experience today, The Three Questions, is a part of a larger collection of stories and tales. And what he did is he put flesh and bones onto some of his concepts about how we can actually make a better world. So that's where the three questions came from. What you will experience today is an adaptation of the work that I did to use as a teaching tool for the youth choir in Westport. And as with all mythological characters and stories, and you will hear and see plenty of characters on stage this morning, one always finds oneself somewhere in the story. Why? Because the stories essentially live inside us. So, if we have time afterwards, you can tell me where in the story you found yourself, or maybe several different places. I want to also say one other thing before we begin this morning. Putting music to this drama was a very unique thing in my life. I had never really done anything quite like it before. So when these young people suddenly started singing melodies which were brain children, if you will, all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, this is really happening. And it was both challenging and tremendously exciting for me to see how the ideas and the ideals that we talk about get translated into another medium. Why is that important? Well, it's important because when we take in these visual images and those sounds, those messages, which we treasure, go to a whole nother level. They become much more cellular experiences for us. So I want to acknowledge all the work that these young people have done, all the work that their parents have done by bringing them to these rehearsals. And I want to acknowledge you, because when these characters are on stage, they're going to be sending you energy. And your job, should you choose, is to give them energy back. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with applause. it's a look, a glance, and that untouchable, energetic force which we, you know what I'm talking about, right? I thank you for being here this morning. Here are the 3 questions.
There once was a king named Nicholas, who sometimes felt uncertain about the way that he ruled his kingdom. He had a fear of failure, so he kept asking himself questions about when to do anything, whom to listen to, whom to avoid, how to make priorities, in short, how not to fail.
Is it manners and looks? Is it knowledge and books? Is it festivals that give me some flair? How do we know? How do we know? Is it how I look?
Nicholas became so focused on these questions that he decided to offer a reward to anyone who could teach him when was the right time for every action, who were the most important people, and what was the most important thing to do.
If only I could find the answers to my 3 questions, then I would always know how to rule best.
So Nicholas gathered all of his staff and family to see if anyone had answers for him.
What is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do?
When everyone was gathered, Nicholas asked them his first question. When is the best time to do things? First came the chamberlain, the person who runs the affairs of the castle.
King, there are so many things going on in this castle. One must plan in advance, or nothing will get done. There are the banquets, the archery contests, the training of the knights, the cleaning, the cooking, the harvesting, the hunting, the building of the shops. One must plan in advance, or nothing will get done.
Then Boris, the court astrologer, spoke up next.
If you look at the map of the days and the position of the planets, you will figure out the best time to do things. If you plan a trip when Mercury is in retrograde, you will never reach your destiny. If you plan a hunt when Mars is opposing Jupiter, you could be killed, so you must pay attention.
knight in training.
If you want to be successful in a hunt, you have to go on a sunny day or you will get lost in the woods.
Nicholas thought for a moment. Then he asked his second question.
Who is the most important one?
First came the Abbess Maria.
King, you must not forget about your soul. When you are sad or have questions, you need to tend your spirit. I can help you with that. Prayer will help you feel whole. So the most important people are the ones who pray, because they have good spirit.
Then came Dmitri, the court doctor.
King, you need healthy subjects to do your work. So the most important people are the doctors, because they keep people healthy.
Then came Princess Katerina.
The most important people are the ones who rule. They make the rules, distribute wealth, and are the ones who keep order.
Then came Svetlana, the royal baker at the castle.
The most important person is the baker. Without me, you don't eat. No eat, no live.
All Nicholas could do was shake his head. These answers were not satisfying his curiosity, so he asked his third question.
What is the most important thing to do?
First came the three court valets. Ilya, the royal calligrapher, Lilia, the royal gardener, and Rosia, the royal seamstress.
I read all of your letters. Communication is important.
I am a gardener. Without a garden, your storehouse would be empty.
I sew all your royal clothes. Life would be cold and dry without all your royal garments.
Then came Ivan, the court jester. Then came Ivan, the court jester.
King, you must keep things light, or people will be sad all the time. You know, do you ever wonder why a boxing ring is square? I mean, it's basically a boxing ring, and it has 4 corners of square.
We've read this one a few times.
Then came Sophia, the court counselor.
King, you must look at history so you do not make the same mistake twice. I've memorized the history book, and I can help you. I've read the many history books of victories and the strife. I know the many characters that bring it all to life. I've memorized the history books with all the plotting schemes, and from the many lessons there I share the golden dreams. In reading of my ancestors, I made all and
people will fear your power. The brave knights of the Round Table will help you. Even now, they are practicing their skills. Ha ha!
He did not award any prize.
I know. I will ask Yuri the Hermit. He has lived a very long time. Surely he will know the answers I am looking for.
The
where the old hermit Yuri lived all alone. And since Yuri only accepted common folks as visitors, the king put on simple clothes, left his knife behind, and went on alone so that Yuri would not recognize him as the king. And when Nicholas arrived, he found Yuri digging in his garden. It was hard work for Yuri. He was not young and spry.
It seems like I've been digging forever and a day. It seems like I've been working as hard as I may. I'm not complaining, but as you can see, the matter of lifting responsibly is a full-time job. For you and for me is a full-time job. For you and for me. But when the day is done, oh, I'm happy as I can be. It seems that I don't know you, but thanks for coming round. Sometimes it gets lonely, but here my peace is found. Tending to the good earth helps to focus the mind. So I've rolled up my sleeves till the week is behind. It seems that we're so lucky just to be alive today. So how can I be helpful to a stranger today?
Venerable hermit, will you help me? I've come to ask you 3 simple questions. What is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do?
Yuri listened carefully, but then, without saying a word, he went on with his digging. The king was somewhat puzzled, but he did not give up. After a few minutes of watching Yuri, the king said,
You must be tired. Let me help you.
Thank you.
It was easier for the king because he was young. So he kept on digging row after row. He kept working until late in the day, and then he noticed some storm clouds gathering in the sky. Sensing that he needed to quit, the king was getting frustrated. So he said,
Yuri, I've come to you for simple answers because everyone knows how wise you are. But if you can give me none, please say so and I will return home.
By then, it had started to thunder. And the raindrops started to fall. And as they started for Yuri's cottage, Nicholas heard a cry for help in the distance.
Help!
Running down the path, he found a woman and her daughter whose leg was injured in a fall due to a falling tree, and Nicholas helped them back to the cottage through the pouring rain. When they got inside, Nicholas made a splint for her leg.
Help! This hurts. Why did this happen to me?
I don't know, but please rest. Lullaby, little one, let your eyes close. Lullaby, little one, sleep in repose. Lullaby, may nighttime spirits
And all was well with the world. Olga thanked Nicholas for saving the life of her child and then went on her journey. Nicholas felt deep peace within himself, and yet he was disappointed. He still had not found the answers to his 3 questions.
Yuri, I still do not have the answers to my questions. I'm sorry to ask you one more time, but please could you tell me?
But your questions have been answered.
They have? But how?
Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig, you would have been caught in the storm, and my garden would not be ready for planting. Therefore, the most important time was the time that you spent digging. The most important one at that moment was me. The most important thing to do was to help me dig. Later, you would have heard the peasants' cries for help during the storm. When you found the injured child, the most important time is the time you spent mending the child's leg. The most important one at that moment were the mother and the child. And the most important thing was to take care of the child. Remember that there's only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with. The most important thing to do is to do good to the one who is standing by your side. For these are the answers to your questions, and this is why you are here.
Oh, I get it. The answers were here all the while. I knew you could help me to understand. I will always remember your advice. And thank you. Thank you.
So he said goodbye to Yuri and made his way back to the castle. In the meantime, back at the castle, people were growing restless. The king had been gone for weeks, and no one knew his whereabouts. Where was he? Did something happen to him? It was a long and difficult journey, but Nicholas and Igor arrived back safely. And when the king arrived, they all wanted to know what the answers were to the questions. Nicholas told them the whole story, and they were all amazed. It was a day of learning for everyone, and they sang about it.
Oh, not tomorrow, nor the day after. The time is now. The time is now. Working, taking, helping, healing. Doing good is what you do. Doing good is what you do. Is a person
a wonderful morning. And so the children lead us, and so they shall. Have a wonderful morning. Blessed be. Amen. And be kind to each other and all you meet on your journeys till we meet again.